There's nothing I love more than a good old religious children's movie. I went to a religious primary school and the amount of times they made us watch The Prince of Egypt was almost criminal. I used to hate it. Looking back though and rewatching the movie, I actually love it. It tells the story of Moses and it's actually really interesting. It has great music by Stephen Schwartz and it's really well animated. It's by DreamWorks, like they made Shrek, come on. But we're not talking about The Prince of Egypt today. We're talking about a different film which tells the story of Moses. We're talking about Joshua and the Promised Land. It tells the story of a young lion, God knows why, going on a journey with Moses and his guardian angel to learn about courage, and it's truly awful. Apparently this film was made by one man alone, and while I commend him for being able to make a near hour-long movie all by himself, it doesn't negate the fact that this film is a big piece of shit masquerading as an animated movie. So let's get into it. From the very first second we can see what kind of mess we're in for. Horrific. It's gross. It looks disgusting. The animation is nearly unwatchable, but we have to get over that because we have 55 minutes of this movie. First we see a pink cat in a bow tie floating in front of your nan's curtains. He's the narrator and he flies in all the time. He tells us that Josh wishes he was courageous and brave. So then we're introduced to Joshua, who's living in a really dysfunctional household.
Well, if you would just stop spending so much time on that car of yours, I wouldn't get so upset. Honestly, Joshua, will you please get out of the way? I'm trying to fix dinner.
Bro, get a grip. There was literally nothing even out in the kitchen. She hadn't even started making it. Can you calm down? Also, I want to ask why all the animals are naked. Like, it's fine in The Lion King when they're walking on 4 legs, or even in Madagascar when the lion's on 2 legs, because they're like in nature, which is where they're meant to be. But there's just something about putting naked anthropomorphized lions in a home that makes me extremely uncomfortable. Especially since Joshua has an incredibly fleshy tone to his skin. I would say fair, but like none of them have fair. They're all just incredibly smooth, which also makes me very uncomfortable. Anyway, Joshua goes to his room to cry about his life and to sleep. This cat thing then flies in, and this is a different magical flying cat than the one at the beginning of the movie. He says hello, but Joshua doesn't wake up, so he throws a magic purple ball at him. And Joshua doesn't even seem to be confused by the presence of this magical floating cat, who's Chris, his guardian angel.
But my real name is Christopher Andrew Eugene Bazioni, at your service. Just call me Chris.
And Josh has clearly never been taught about stranger danger, or maybe he just hates his home life that much, because he takes the cat's hand, no questions asked, and they fly through the ceiling and through time to ancient Egypt. The bowtie cat comes back in to tell us that this is a pyramid, which was historically made out of bricks and mortar. This story takes place after Moses has freed the slaves, and he says that the pharaoh wants to recapture them. So Chris and Joshua fly over Egypt. Ah yes, grassy ancient Egypt. And they see the pharaoh. God knows what animal this is meant to be. Chris tells Josh
God could hit them right over the head with a big thick hammer and they still don't get it.
and that people who fight against God always lose. And then they fly over all these green horses. Right, I don't like when movies can't seem to decide which animals are animals and which animals are humans. Why do the horses go on 4 legs, but like whatever animal the pharaoh is walking on 2? I don't get it. Anyway, they see this fire.
That's the presence of God there.
No, I think it's a fire. And Joshua tries to touch the fire even though Chris said no. And Chris says,
Sometimes a no means maybe, I'll grant you that. But when it comes from God, a no means no.
I think we need to teach this cat about consent. Sometimes no means maybe. Problematic, sir.
That's Moses.
That's Moses. Moses, I'm sorry. Then Chris throws Joshua's soul into the body of one of the ex-slaves and just flies off. So Moses parts the Red Sea, classic, and Joshua passes through. And apparently this walk was miles and miles long, so it amazes me how these people were able to keep such a quick pace coming out the other side. Anyway, the pharaoh and his army all drown, we know this, but the cat says even though they're free, it's not always so easy.
That sand gets into everything.
Yeah, that's the biggest issue the Hebrews faced. Sand getting into everything. You know, when I go to the beach and get sand in between my toes, I really relate to Moses and his struggle, even though the sand in ancient Egypt was green. Then Moses asks God for food and a bunch of birds flock the town, and Moses asks Joshua to get him one so they can eat.
I'm hungry.
Like, okay, I get he's talking to God now, but does anyone else think that Moses has gotten way too big for his boots? We get it, you're the chosen one, but you can get your own food. But Joshua accepts.
Yes, sir, Moses.
Oh my god, Joshua is literally hidden the Gwitty in the middle of the desert right now. So they murder the quail and spit roast its green meat, and Moses asks Joshua to set up a tent next to his.
I can't do that. I don't have a tent.
Oh, that's not a problem.
Then Josh sets up one of the biggest tents I've ever seen. So they didn't have enough time to pack food, but Moses had enough time to pack a spare circus-sized tent. circus-sized. Not circus, I'm not talking about Moses. I mean, he was Jewish, so I mean. Anyway, Floating Cat comes back and says about the Hebrews.
These guys just love to complain.
These guys love to complain. The Hebrews. The Hebrews who were slaves and escaped from the Pharaoh with Moses. These guys love to complain. Yeah, what right do they have to want fresh water? It's ridiculous. Yeah, Pharaoh, they're over here. Moses then hits a rock to get some water. Right, how is that divine? Is that something no ordinary human can do? Only the chosen one can hit a rock, yeah? Then Moses tells Joshua that the Amalekites are planning an attack and he needs to round up everyone while Moses stands on the hill with his arms up so they know that God is fighting on their side. I might just be dissing the Bible now, but it seems very convenient that all he has to do is stand there with his arms up and he gets all the glory.
Maybe you should find somebody else.
Okay, so Joshua assembles the army. I just want to know why they're all different types of animals. I feel like it would make more sense, like allegory-wise, for all the Hebrews to be one kind of animal and all the other people to be a different kind of animal. Like, if you're not even going to make a point with your choice in animal, what's the point of them being animals in the first place? Why can't they just be humans? They're just random animals that are blue and green for no reason. Anyway, then the battle starts and Joshua eats shit. The Amalekites get knocked over like bowling pins. And Moses' arms got tired in the long battle. Oh my god, it must be so hard to stand there with your arms up while you watch everyone else get battered with swords. Okay, like at this point I am just dissing Moses, but like you have one job, keep your arms up or this happens. So Moses' friends lift his arms back up and they win the battle. God gives them a bunch of rules, including that they can't worship idols, and then they all go up to this red brick area in the middle of the desert. Red brick in the middle of the desert, historically accurate. Moses then invites Joshua with him to come and meet God, and when they get there,
Wait here until I return.
Moses goes off and Joshua has to wait in the desert for 40 days. The cheek of that. I would be so annoyed. Like, imagine your friend is like, oh my god, come with me to meet your favourite celebrity, and when you get there, they go in the room and you have to sit outside.
Hardship can build good character.
And 40 days in the desert alone can also build mental illness. Moses comes back and finds everyone worshipping an idol. They weren't supposed to do that.
No! No!
He punishes them by grinding this statue down, mixing it with water and forcing them to drink it.
Yuck.
Who made you do that though? This is what I mean about Moses getting too big for his boots. It's not up to you to punish them, mate. But I suppose it's fine if you're close with the big guy. Joshua goes to spy on Jericho, the land they were promised, but it's full of red, annoying people. Side note, he is not a very good spy. He sticks out like a sore thumb and he doesn't try to hide himself in any way. Luckily, no one asks him why he's there. Joshua speaks to Chris after and he's upset because he's like, we can't take back the land if there's people already living there. But he also tells Chris that they killed a baby and Chris is like, well, they gotta go. God doesn't like murder. God doesn't like murder. Tell that to his track record. Come on.
These people are doing things detestable to God.
Eating poo is actually a satanic ritual.
No.
If you want to be about peace, be about peace. I'm not here for these double standards.
It's a lot harder to find that kind of courage.
I wish someone would announce my decisions like this. Just some guy comes in floating. The reason she's leaving the party is because she didn't want to be there in the first place. It takes a lot of courage to do something like that. So Joshua comes back to the people and says they can just take over the place, and everyone is so dramatic.
No way. He's a fool. This is ridiculous. We can't defeat them. If only we had died in Egypt.
Why don't they think they can win? It's not like they're living in the present day and being asked to blindly believe in something. These guys literally saw Moses part the sea. What grounds do they have for doubt?
Stone him! Stone him! Stone him! Stone him! Stone him!
Oh my god.
Stop!
Remember that he's still a little kid in a man's body, or a cub in a big lion's body.
But God punished them with his awesome power.
His awesome power. Anyway, because everyone acted bad, they have to spend 40 years in the desert, and so does Moses because he hit a rock twice to get some water. He already did that though. He's done it before. He did it earlier on in the movie, and now he's condemned to die in the desert. This guy freed the slaves. Like, I know I was shitting on him earlier, but he kind of deserves a little bit more respect, I think. Guys, hot take. Moses deserves some more respect. God tells Moses that he's about to die, but he needs to climb a mountain to look over the land that he will never be allowed into. That's so mean. That's so toxic. You can't let it go. He hit a rock, so what? Oh, he hit a rock twice. Oh god, yeah, banish him, banish him. I would be so annoyed if I was Moses. So he goes to look over the land, and I will say, as bad as the animation is, this one frame is really hard hitting, I think. I'm not even kidding, like, the way that his smile drops ever so slightly is like, it's the perfect expression. It was definitely not intentional, but I think it's like, whoa. And then it's immediately ruined with whatever this is. Moses says that when he's gone, the people are going to look to Joshua, so he needs to seek God's guidance. I would have turned my back years ago. If I was denied the promised land because I hit a rock, I'd turn to Satanism, genuinely. And that's the hill I'll die on. Oh, sorry, that's the hill Moses will die on. Moses dies. Spoiler alert. And Joshua leads the people to Jericho. Was he allowed into the promised land the whole time? The whole time?
The whole time?
Did my guy really just watch everyone die in the desert for 40 years when he could have been off in paradise? Also, at no point since crossing the Red Sea does Joshua mention anything about his life back at home. This guy must really hate his family if he willingly spent 40 years in the desert. So Joshua and the Hebrews circle around Jericho for 6 days and all the people of Jericho laugh at them. They find it really funny. Then this happens. How is this okay? So the angels are allowed to use a city with people living in it as their own personal rage room, but Moses wasn't allowed to hit a rock twice. Injustice. And Joshua just watches in glee. Sadist. So they finally win the city and Chris is like,
So, are you ready to wake up?
like, no, I'm not. We just got here. 40 years we've been waiting for this. But apparently Joshua's fine with it and he goes back home and Chris spins away. But the king of Jericho turned into a ball of fire and followed Joshua back home. I thought it was going to show us that Joshua was finally brave enough to defeat him, but then this happens. Whatever this is. And now he has 2 cool bricks as souvenirs. Nice. And they've crumbled. Okay, so the point was, Joshua's parents are downstairs giving a masterclass in unhealthy relationships.
I'm sick of this. First it's the car, now it's dinner.
Wine.
Until Joshua comes down and doesn't say a word, and his parents apologize to him and to each other.
I'll try to spend some more time with you. With both of you.
And they lived happily ever after.
And that's it.
Have a good one.
That's it. The lesson was just, yeah, trust in God. This movie gave me no reason to trust in God. This movie gave me every reason not to trust in God. But you know what? When the movie was over, I found myself wanting more. I wanted to stay with these characters a bit longer. I didn't want this journey to be over. I found myself growing to love this world that I'd known. Oh, you know there's a deleted scene, right? What? There's a 14-minute deleted scene. If you wanted more of the movie, you could always watch that. Okay, that's all for today's video. If you don't value your free time or your sanity and want to watch this movie for yourself, you can find it on YouTube. I'll link it in my description. And if you enjoyed my video and want to support my channel, you can give the video a like and subscribe if you want to. I'll also be replying to all the comments, so feel free to leave a comment. Have you seen this movie? If so, what did you think of it? Which animal did you think was the hottest? No, please don't say that, please. Anyway, that's all from me today. Still got the iPad. Oh.